Today is the winter solstice, December of 2022. It's about 7 a.m. and I just hiked up the Stonehenge property and I'm looking for the owner, my friend Dennis Stone. I asked the angels and celestials who originally told me to come here. I did not even know this place existed until the angels and celestials informed me. I didn't realize that my angels and celestials led me to the winter solstice monolith, a monolith they have been speaking of for a couple of weeks. So I do wind up hiking back down and around, and that's when I find everyone and we all start chatting. The hike can be pretty exhausting when you're going up and down the small mountain all day long for at least 12 hours. This day does become more extraordinary by sunset. I do have a camera strapped to my forehead because it is so cold, 19 degrees, and I am carrying equipment as well. So here's what's interesting. Directly behind me is where the winter solstice monolith is located. I could feel it, but I wasn't really aware of it, and I walked from the parking lot up the mountain all the way to the back of the property where I stand now, directly to the monolith that is aligned with the winter solstice. I pull out my map because I'm just not quite sure where it is. And then later I realize, oh my gosh, I was right next to it when I felt it. And I've never been on this part of the property before.
It's over there. Okay, so the Solstice monolith is down here somewhere. This has got to be the serpent one he's talking about. I want to see this from above. Okay, so that's A. I gotta go back the other way. What is that? A4? Yep, that way. It's gonna be that way. D. There's E. Alright, I'm almost there. I walked right to it and didn't even know it. That usually happens with the angels. I guess y'all are guiding me. I think it's over there. There it is.
As I'm touching the monolith, I begin to open up my light. There are many beings around me right now, and I have recorded them telling me that I have to go to this monolith and use what they call my angel light, which will do something peculiar with the glyphs that they said are inside of the monolith. I wasn't really sure if I was doing this correctly, but as the day goes on, a lot more does happen. They did tell me that once I did this, that flying saucers would indeed appear, that they would fly a saucer in, and other worlds from above would open, and that Arcturian light would also activate these hieroglyphs. Let's take a look back at those sessions really quick.
I feel like you have a message for me soon. I just hear you calling. Go ahead.
This is really strange. I'm seeing a lot of visions.
Go ahead with what you want me to know. What can you tell me about the monolith? Why would these worlds above, as you call them, open? Thank you. And why, the other question I have is what entities are within these worlds above, if you can give me some information on it.
UFO investigator Anthony Sanchez published a transcript of his recorded discussion with a retired U.S. Air Force colonel about what he called tall, pale humanoids from one of the planets in one of two solar systems orbiting Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, which is a binary star system about 39 light years from Earth. It's the one that the famous Betty and Barney Hill abduction case that Betty drew under hypnosis, a system of trade routes that involved a place where it was pointed out to her where our sun is, where Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 have trade routes with other stars in that system. Anthony Sanchez, in his recorded transcript with the U.S. Air Force colonel, talks about progenitors, that is the word, that the progenitors were and are a tall, some kind of humanoid intelligence that would be the root source of the humanoids in this solar system. The fact that there was some kind of a war in Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 a million or more years ago, and that it was between the tall, pale humanoid progenitors and another life form, gray humanoids, and that these two life forms are somehow distributed in this double binary star system of Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, and that what the war was about, according to the U.S. Air Force colonel, is that the tall, pale humanoids were secretly going to the gray humanoid planet, harvesting genetic material, going back to their planet in the Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 system, creating androids, hybrids, a variety of slave labor from the genetic material that the tall humanoids were harvesting from the short gray planets. And this word, progenitors, meaning the original root race behind what's in this solar system, involved the idea that whatever the history is that would explain ancient artifacts on Mars, on the Moon, on Earth, and perhaps other bodies in our solar system, it's all attributed in the U.S. Air Force colonel's story to these progenitors from Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, and that they were involved in constructions on Mars, on the backside of the Moon, the interior of the Moon, on our Earth, and probably other places even yet in our solar system that we have not been told anything about publicly or by whistleblowers. The colonel says, according to the Greys, the humanoids that got into the war with the tall, pale humanoids, to their historical writings, they tell us that the progenitor race came from another star system, Sirius, and that they were chased from there, again by these gray beings, and that they ended up on Mars. Mars was the closest to their own planet from the Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 system. Mars was the original place inhabited by them in our solar system, meaning they went to Mars first, not to Earth first. But choosing Mars proved to be a major miscalculation. There was a cataclysmic event, according to the Air Force colonel. An asteroid hit that exterminated some or most of the progenitors. But we know that John Brandenburg, who is a nuclear physicist, that he wrote a 2015 book entitled Death on Mars, The Discovery of a Planetary Nuclear Massacre. And this is about the presence of Xenon-129 in the atmosphere of Mars, which has led to John Brandenburg's doing even a presentation at a NASA conference about enough Xenon-129 in the Martian atmosphere to support the John Brandenburg hypothesis that there were two hydrogen bombs that exploded in the northern hemisphere, and that there was a compression wave that would have annihilated cities and life in that Cydonia region where there is the big head the big Cydonia pyramid and other structures that are referred to as the Cydonia city. John Brandenburg thinks that this explosion of bombs in the Northern Hemisphere could go back 1 million years. The timeline is not clear. But if he is right, this might explain what whistleblowers have been telling me for the past approximately 18 months, that our government knows from its own secret investigations that the Cydonia region in the Martian Northern Hemisphere does in fact have pyramid and other structures that are made out of a composite material which has some kind of a substance not found in our periodic table of elements. Further, that the current whistleblowers tell me that the hieroglyphs and the symbols on the ancient artifacts of Mars match exactly the hieroglyphs and symbols on ancient artifacts and pyramids on the backside and interior of our moon, and that they match exactly the hieroglyphs and symbols on ancient artifacts and pyramids that are under 1.5 to 2 miles of ice in Antarctica, and that the way we have been getting into Antarctica for the last 15 or so years has been through submarine into some part of Antarctica under the water.
Thank you.
What can you tell me about these Celtic locations and something called Stonehenge?
Hi, Dennis.
And it's just an amazing, you're making the biggest a lady from Colorado spoke, and she showed similar structures
site in Ontario
Oh, yeah.
that I would go to. I would literally, everybody else would be walking around, and I would literally feel like I was getting sucked into the ground. Like there's railings around it, and I would be like on the railing, and other people are just like, well, I'm like, don't you feel it?
Side of this,
Like over here?
out the fence.
Out there.
Yeah.
Let's walk over. Because interestingly enough, you're right with the rocks.
She wants to lead us at the university down there and take us out and show us some of his story. So he does YouTube stuff and everything. So anyway, these things are all over the landscape. The Hudson Valley has 500 sites. How's it going?
Good. It's cold.
I know, my fingers are frozen.
That's why I brought this.
Is that a heater or just a camera?
It's just it's a little bit of both.
I'm going to heat my head up. Yeah, I know. It's 22 degrees out this morning. Did you get here in time for the sunrise?
I did.
Oh, I didn't even see you. I was looking for you.
Yeah, I saw you guys. I was way behind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And last night was so beautiful here, you know, and I think tonight might be kind of nice, you know. That stone's right out there.
Are y'all gonna have people here?
Yeah, you know, yeah. I think the evening one, if the sun comes out, if it looks good in the afternoon, we'll get a big turnout. You know, we have quite a few people for sunrise. In the summer solstice, it's just a lot of people. You know, in the winter, you know, people don't want to get up and come out in a 22-degree day. You know.
Yeah, it's cold.
But my friend Maria from England just sent me a picture of one of the chambers. And she lives near Avebury, but she shows one of the underground chambers. It's a Longborough with the sun, just like we saw. I think she saw it 5 hours ago. And she just sent me. She's doing the same thing you did.
Yeah.
Doing that, yeah.
It's just easier.
Yeah. So I just got that on my phone, and she you know, said hi to me and everything else. And she's involved with English Heritage over there, you know.
Oh wow.
And but she's her dad was an archaeologist, and he was here 40 years ago. You know, she's big into this, and earth energies and dowsing and all of that. And so she's coming here next year. She's going to bring a group, like a tour group, I think.
Oh wow, that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
Hi.
Yeah, we're just trying to stay warm here. Just so.
Yeah, the sun feels nice.
But
it's cold.
I sent you pictures, I think, last night. I think.
Yes.
Of the sunset. Yeah. So this is Maria. She looks like Stevie Nicks a little bit.
Oh, yeah, she does. I just met Stevie Nicks in New Orleans a couple months
ago. Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my wife loves Stevie Nicks.
Me too.
Yeah, that's Stevie Nicks in England. But yeah. You can see what she's into. She's the author guide tours, and she just was in Malta. She was in Chaco before that. Now she's heading to Egypt, and then when she does Egypt, I think after that she's coming over here. I think this is her today thing right here. There she is. Let me pull it up.
Before the solstice, and it's absolutely magnificent sunrise. It's aligned to the winter solstice sunrise, and look,
like
the whole axis line is being illuminated in beautiful light. It's magnificent. It's like time stands still here. It really is. You can see all of the dust, even in the air. And I'm going to turn the camera around now. And look at the far chamber, bathed in glorious
illumination
light.
Kind of thing, like we have on our...
It doesn't get any better than that. In fact, I've shared this solstice with 2 other people, and we waited 2 years to see this.
2 years.
We did here 2 years and years to see things like the Watch House. We just saw it 2 years ago, and we've been here since 1955.
Oh, wow.
We finally watched that illumination. I think I sent you those pictures where the sunlight goes in, it illuminates, frames the stone, and then turns into what looks like a hand pointing back at the front.
Yes, I saw that it was pointing.
Same thing she's got going on there, you know?
Yeah.
I think we ought to do it live, too, in the spring, you know, like a Facebook Live or something like that, you know?
That would be fun.
You know, if you're around.
I will be.
And you're good at that. My daughter-in-law's good at the stuff too, and I'm kind of like, I'm all thumbs, you know.
Yeah. I didn't bring the big cameras today, but I really just wanted to see and feel everything here. And
that, and then the 2 points, like the gun sight, the birchstone was down there. I took them from here because that's where everything comes together. It seems like they have everything come together at those 2 cairns. But then if you want to actually watch it, you can stand there and watch it rise over the hill and the stone, but go down below at the right elevation, and then you have a stone circle there for the summer solstice, and then you watch the stone is shaped like that with a point up on the left, that one right there. And if you look at the far distant horizon, it's the same shape. And then you open up the clearing in 73, 50 years ago, it's like, my God, the shape of the hill is the same shape as the top of the rock. And that was a surprise to when we're cutting the trees down, you know, like, whoa. They took that into account, those notches. They call them horizon features over in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Scotland is a site called there's one called Kintra, I think it's called. It's in a book called by Edward Krupp from the Griffith Observatory. And I've been to Scotland, but I haven't been to it. But 15 miles is like a notch or something on a hill, and you have your big stone stood up and your other stone, and they're all like a gun sight towards that hill. And then the sun rises on the hill and everything at once. A really long line, you know, for accuracy, for alignment, if that's what they were looking for.
The alignments, they're important.
Cool, yeah. And they call them horizon features. Sometimes they actually have like little notches like we have here, and the stone was set up. And it just happens nature kind of worked out nicely with them, you know. But they do have 2 points here, 2 cairns that were there originally. So not everything came together at one single point. It came to those 2 points, and that seems to work well for all. Even that notch is where the hill slopes down, the stones out there. The summer solstice is absolutely beautiful. The way there's the summer solstice where it fits in, and it's actually more exaggerated. The hill, that's the top of the stone right there. It was. And then it fits right into the notch, and then the sun sets. That's a sun setting on the summer solstice.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Pretty like that.
Is the winter one kind of off because of the tilt?
Yeah, everything is off. Well, the equinox is pretty much on. Although if you put a big stone up, the sun's going to angle away. But it's about 1 minute every century, 40 centuries, 40 minutes, and the sun's about 30 minutes across. So it's your thumb and the little finger off today, approximately. But all you have to do is move yourself slightly. So where we stand here, we just have to move a few feet over to actually make it work today from where they had it.
Okay.
If it worked perfectly today, then it was set up either tens of thousands, you know, in the life cycle, because it's a 41,000 year cycle, or it was set up recently, this site. So that's what they used at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics in 77, 78, when they looked at the 5 years of survey data from the alignments. And they came back, and we have the report. Rosenberg, I think, was the person that did it. And they said, well, if these were used for astronomical purposes, it would work around 1800 BC, plus or minus about 200 years, due to the Earth's tilt, the obligity cycle. And then you had the precessional cycle over 26. That changes a pole star. But they didn't get into that so much as a tilt.
Okay.
And Sir Norman Lockyer from England was looking at that 100 years ago. He says, this is an error, and some of these alignments are off. If we could just go back and figure out when they worked. And they didn't have all the information we have today 100 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they could dig into it, you know, and they started to, you know, looking at it, surveying them, like Dr. Tom started surveying the sites and everything, finding out, these sites were set up thousands of years ago, and the Earth's tilt has changed, and they would have worked back then. They're just off a little today, you know, which is cool.
It is, isn't it?
That's kind of a cool time.
I find it
you know?
fascinating.
Yeah. So it'd be off. But the equinox, you know, no matter what you do, the Earth, you know, you know, the sun is like here, and you know, you got your spring over here with the Earth like this, and you tilt it a little bit, you'll still have the Earth revolving like that, and that's the equator, you know, and the sun's rising over there on the equinox. But then summer, you're pointed like this, and then winter, you're over here like that, and the tilt's different, so the sun will be different, and the stars will be off a little too. But if equinox, if you have a really tall, like a mountain, and you're looking up, the sun's doing this at an angle. So if you tilt the Earth, it's going to change that. But near the horizon, it's still going to be close to 90 degrees. But we have not only equinox, sunrise and sunset, we have the megalithic equinox.
Oh, yes.
And it divides the year into 91 and a quarter, or 91 and an eighth, whatever it is. It divides the year into half and quarters. If you go to the equinox, because the Earth doesn't go around the sun in a circle, it goes around in an ellipse. If you count the days from equinox to summer, it's like 93 days. And you go back, it's 93. And then winter, it's like 89. But the megalithic equinox, they're only off 1 degree, 2 days difference. So that would be the equinox. And this would be the megalithic equinox for the sunrise. And every prep again says you got to move it 1 degree, 2 days, which would be one whole sunball because it's a 30 minutes, so 60 minutes. You'll be able to count from this megalithic, 91, 91, 91 is in a fraction. And so we have both here. Which farmer is going to do that? Who is a farmer, or he's a shoemaker? Why would he ever do that? He built the whole thing. And really, he got into the megalithic equinox too, and the equinox, which are two different things.
Yeah.
And we have that. And Callanash in Scotland, the Scottish Stonehenge, which I haven't been up there. I've been to Scotland. We met Tom's over there. I never got there. I got to get back over to Scotland. That has the megalithic equinox. It's not really the equinox. It's the day. It's the divider, the mid-year divider.
Interesting.
Yeah. Don't confuse that with the mid-season, which are your cross-quarter days. We were talking about that. Into the Druid.
Hello.
The cross-quarter days are really big in the Druid. More than the quarter days are,
Yeah, in the Celtic tradition, they celebrate the cross-quarter, like Beltane and Samhain are the most sacred.
Yeah.
More so than summer solstice. They do celebrate them, but it's like
true.
No, Samhain's really the most important holiday, but you can't have that without Beltane. So and you can argue they're both the most because it's like life and death, like the underlying belief system of reincarnation and that cyclical nature, So those two holidays really represent the kind of epitome of that life energy and the death energy.
The cycle.
The gateway to the light and the gateway to the dark.
Yeah.
So
you said that beautifully.
Imbolc too. Imbolc.
Imbolc
I wrote about that in my books.
Or Lunasa. The Irish would call it Lunasa because Lu is the Celtic god. Yeah. Lammas is actually the Christian name for that holiday. The energy, this gentleman over here, he was talking, the energy over there is incredible. Really, I can feel it here too, but there's some strong energy, ley line kind of energy up in here, where he is over there. It's really, it reminds me of Peterborough, of the petroglyphs in Peterborough. Really, I was thinking there must be, if they did some sort of archaeological, I don't know, I feel like there must be a larger site than just this being like maybe the altar, like the main ceremonial
this stretch all over, this features all over the hill. Yeah, there's niches out there. We have found windows too, by the way.
Windows.
The windows have been found in the wall starting in the same year I started finding the serpent walls.
In here or
They're on the stone walls themselves. And
Yeah.
I think we have 14 windows today and 14 serpent walls. That's what we think at the moment. And these are beautiful linteled windows, and they vary in size, like around this big, roughly about this big. And one of them has two more windows on its left if you're looking at it from one direction, and one more on the right. It also has a stone that was standing next to it. And we don't like moving things here because it's an archaeological site. Don't touch anything if we can help it.
Yeah.
But our assistant archaeologist said, can we take that stone that's standing up next to the window in the dirt, can we take it out and put it and see if it fits? Because he's a not only assistant archaeologist, he went to Boulder. He's a stonemason. He's a stonemason. He's been doing it for close to 40 years. He went to school in New Hampshire, college, and he went out to Boulder. Then he's been doing this. Anyway, I said, okay, for research, we'll take some photographs of it and then we'll put it back where it belongs. But anything you touch, it's disturbed now forever. So we did it. We didn't, but we did it. We put it, and it fits right in as a shutter. It does close it off perfectly. We found in front of a few other ones, there's stones that are lying in front of them, like there are stone shutters. And one of them he found on the day Ancient Aliens was filming us. We had the guy up here filming, walking him back to his truck. He was all done for the day doing B-roll. And we walked by it. Unfortunately, his equipment was put away because I think we got another window on the way down, and it has shutters stacked up like Venetian blinds in it, and they're all loose. And then I found one out here that has cobbles in it, and they're all loose in there. I don't like to touch them, but I just took my finger and touched them like that. I didn't move them, and they're all loose in there. And it's like, so these windows, they're in some of the serpentine walls too, and they're in North Stonington, Connecticut. In fact, when I opened up that book I mentioned, I'm looking at that going, I got those too here. And they're in other sites too.
Do you think you could possibly find more? Because I feel like that number, like I would think like 19 maybe. Like I'm just thinking in terms of like the Celts. And,
I saw one the other day. I saw when I was taking out. I'm still cleaning up wood. I take it home to burn it, and I'm out there looking at all the walls, trying to not chainsaw myself to death or trip over wood while I'm doing it because I got my eyes open.
Yeah, because 9 is a really
I think I got another one here, but I didn't want to declare the window yet because I want to look at it closer. So you. By the way, they're also in England. In my friend Maria, I just showed you. she, during one of the podcasts, she stopped it. We were all done for the day, and she stayed on, chatted for a while. She goes, I got one. She sends me the picture later that day, and it's one in Dartmoor, and it's what they call soul holes. So the spirit can go through over there. That's a thought in England. And it looks like one of mine, almost exactly. With a woman who's an MD in Indiana, and she does health and medical, and she said, and I did a 2-hour radio show, she wanted to branch out into the odd, so she chose me as her first guest, as an odd guest. I thought that was flattering in a way, but I don't know.
From somebody who knows a lot of odd people here.
Yeah, I'm the odd one, right? You know how it is.
I know how it is.
Into the rocky stuff. So she goes, I was a nurse in Dallas, and I said, oh, no kidding. She goes, yeah, I was in the Catholic hospital. And she goes, what we would do is when a patient was dying, their family would gather. They would call me in sometimes. They had the key for the windows, to lock it for security, make sure nobody jumped out or whatever. She goes, they'd have me unlock it. When the person passed, I would leave the room and they would let the spirit flow out. And I'm like, that sounds what these things are.
I think it's probably the origin of that.
I would say half the people I meet, either on here or even if we do, like I did a couple radio shows, half don't know about that and half do. And I mentioned it to my wife because she went to Catholic school, but you mentioned Catholic, although my wife goes, it's not probably necessarily Catholic, but I did hear about that in Catholic school because I never knew it, like, a spirit window.
It's it's somewhere like Ireland or...
It's got some pretty deep history. The roots go back pretty far on it.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
it's
so
amazing.
Cool. Well, I bet this is going to keep amazing you in many generations to come.
We keep finding things, my dad, and all the other researchers, we've talked, this gentleman over here, we've talked about, people in the past that are no longer with us, but they come back and see some of the serpent walls and the windows and some of the quarry sites. We have slabs all over the hilltop that have been raised off the bedrock, propped up, and then the edge has been serrated by percussion flaking, So they had a bigger plan. I think we found 34 of them up to 1,000 feet. Some are from me to you. The biggest one is probably about from me to you. It's and there's two about that size. And they're up to 1,000 feet down, even over the hill.
Yeah, it's got to be bigger. And when you look at the size of Stonehenge. And like I was saying, the theories about Stonehenge is they would have the stone structure and then they had a wooden structure, and they proved that archaeologically. So they believe that there was like a procession from like the wooden structure being connected with the living realm, and the stone structure being connected with the realm of the dead, because stone is permanent; it goes on for generations.
Well, the hieroglyphs too.
Wooden stuff, that's a living domicile, and then the sacred area of the.
Well, it could have been ceremonial too, because then there would be a procession
from there to there.
Well, absolutely.
So there could be around here, I think, if they.
Well, we have these two walls here. We call them processional paths. That one, and then the one that came up.
That makes sense. No, because the energy, like. This is obviously the ceremonial area, like an altar, but the energy goes all over here. So, like, why
I
did we
noticed
just
it
put
too.
there and not?
She is a very knowledgeable druid, but what she does not realize is that she is feeling the energy, the luminous energy of the hieroglyphs. The angels and celestials told me that the glyphs are outside of the structures on the surface, but there are some that are within the stones, such as the winter solstice monolith. There are many beings standing around us now. My 11 are with me 24/7. Sometimes others can pick up on this energy as well. But when I was first here and alone, I had seen several entities in red robes standing on the property looking directly at me. They were in spirit form. I wasn't quite sure what they were, and I knew that they were extraterrestrial in nature. More has happened since.
So they could let light in or close it off and make it dark, depending on...
Yeah, we had a Native American, too. He's from Mexico, actually. He lives in Connecticut. He was with us with a Dr. McBride from University of Connecticut. Very nice guy, and he's kind of mainstream, but he's been working on Gunching Walk in Connecticut. And now he's working on, I think his tune is changing. I think in the past, these are just a bunch of farmers' constructions. And I think when he saw this site, he was pretty blown away by it, I think. And I showed him some of this stuff. And he's like...
It's hard to argue that it's just
farmers.
I agree.
And there's two more windows over here.
Well, I've actually documented otherworldly entities, speaking of this place, which I didn't even know about it till they did. And it's public in my documentaries. That's what I do.
Okay. Yeah, I was watching this last week. It's really interesting. Oh, she should...
Yeah, it's heavy.
give
I'm
her
one
your
of the few
address or
people in the world who can do it.
the link you
wow.
can get. Yeah, you don't do much social media, but I get
No,
you.
I'm
but,
not on social media
yeah.
anymore.
You
Yeah.
gave me through a text
Not a
message.
social media
You
person.
text message me. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
emailed. It was an email or text. It was text. It was text you sent.
Yeah, I sent you the links through text.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a connection.
Well, here's my question. They keep talking about the hieroglyphs to me, and I need to send you those EVPs, but what do you know about that? Because they keep talking about Arcturian light, celestial light,
Well,
hieroglyphs.
Yeah, I think.
They're talking about opening other worlds.
Okay, that's what you're getting. Yeah.
Well, I haven't sent it to you yet. I was going to send it to you.
Iberian Punic, yeah.
Was that the only one that's like that?
No,
Only
so
animal carving?
so some of the carvings were found by Goodwin back in the 30s, the deer carving, and then there's a couple other markings. But back in the 60s, they found by the chamber ruins what today is called the Iberian Punic stone down in the building, dedicated to Baal on behalf of the Canaanites.
Is that here?
Yeah, it's in the building on display. It came from the chamber ruins. It's not, in the visitor center.
Oh, yeah.
There's
I
the
wanna
stone
go see
itself like that size with the markings, and then there's a plaster cast that Barry Fell made in his home down in
saw
Allen.
that.
The other two are found. One was found in '67, and that one I believe was that one's Libyan. Because the Libyans were, northern Africa, but they were in Spain too, and the Phoenicians were in Spain. And the Carthaginians were there with the Phoenicians, of course, and then the other one, the third type, was Celtic, and the Celts made it into Spain too.
they did. Yeah, they did.
And it was a melting pot. Barry Fell says in some intermarriage and all
Yeah.
that. They would have launched from there into the New World, heading towards Africa. And if you stay a little more to the right, you'll end up going into the Gulf and heading up into North America. If you go a little further to the left on this route, Columbus did the same thing, taking off out of Spain. 500 years ago.
So much they don't know in
So 3
conventional
languages
history.
we know of.
Agreed.
But there's other Semitic languages too. There's Hebrew and stuff found out, across the country. I'm reading a book right now about coins that are Roman, and there's some. That's one of about 6 of the cutouts in the bedrock with a little runnel on it. You can see the
Yeah,
runnel
I
comes
can
through
see that. That's where I was.
Well, Barry Fell in his book, I think he addressed those as possible libation bowls, and then if you Google it, so you put fluids in it for offerings.
Oh, I know what that is.
So we were in Malta, either blood or it could be something else. Could even be semen, I suppose.
Water.
Or wine or water.
Honestly.
Any kind of ritual.
Died, and he had the same things over in Malta there in 97, and the guy goes, were used for fertility. They would pour a liquid in them. It was an offering to the gods over in Malta. That was his interpretation. I said, well, we got something similar.
Yeah.
So we have one shaped like chicken, we have one shaped like a kidney, we have one shaped like a wine bottle. But the important thing is the little runnel that goes off of every one of them like that. It's like,
I was noticing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
They do drain,
Yeah.
So it's like,
Interesting.
again, I get kind of, cynical of it. It's like, because we hear it all the time by some of the hardcore skeptics, but we try not to, because it's kind of negative and they're closed-minded.
Yeah.
If you're
all I got to
have more of an
do
open mind.
is just what you've
Farmer
seen,
built this.
and they won't be skeptical anymore.
A lot more places like this all over,
Well, there's about 800.
New England at least.
There's 800 sites.
There are.
In Ontario, all the way down
But
to
even more in terms of if farmers were just doing this kind of
Oh, that
technique
kind of thing
work,
in that.
there'd be
there'd be
way
records
more
too, I
and
think.
there'd be other evidence
Yeah.
too. It's not modern enough, first of all, even for that 17th.
Well, I recorded them saying, the Celestials saying that it is an ancient place and Enochian blood needs to be present and release light. You should look me up. Enochians are a race.
Like the angel,
There's Enoch, but I'm talking about Pleiadian. It's an extraterrestrial race.
yeah.
I record their voices, so
Interesting.
they've been talking about this place a lot. And
my
they keep.
connections are more with pagan deity.
Oh yeah, they
husband's
talked to me
into
about
alien.
Odin and
Yeah, my
what he
husband's
guards in the fifth
But there's
plane.
theories about like the Tuatha De Danann being connected
Oh,
to
yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at
The
that.
word Dan is in many, including Denmark. That word Dan comes up quite a bit.
Yeah.
I was reading something, I forget the details of that word Dan, part of that word. They just part of the name.
the goddess Danu is also connected with a Hindu goddess in India. Yeah, there's just so
connection
much
there,
we don't know about this planet that we think we know. We don't.
Dennis, do y'all have each other's contact info?
No, I'm gonna get his contact information because my Druid group needs to know about this.
Now,
They
where are
have
you living right now? You're living in
I'm living in Vermont.
Vermont, right?
Yeah,
right,
the
right.
Druid group, obviously they originate in England, but in the UK, but they have more and more they have people who are members in the U.S. and North America. And they need to know about places like this more than they do, I think.
I think Maria's is a Druid too.
Maybe,
I think she
yeah,
herself
maybe.
Druid.
It's the hotel we're staying at is like 45 minutes away. So
What town
it's
is
a bit
it
of a
in?
haul. Newcastle, it's the Wentworth.
Oh yeah, by the coast there. Yeah.
I was a little freaked out in that building because I thought, is this going to be full of ghosts or something? The vibe and the history of it is kind of interesting.
If your husband's into Bigfoot, Ronnie
Yeah.
LeBlanc, he's got the Bigfoot expedition on Travel Channel.
Yeah,
He's been here.
all about that. Yeah.
Actually, I talk to him once in a while. Yeah.
Oh, he would love to hear what he had to say about
Yeah.
that, I'm sure.
Well, he wants to do
because
I
there
asked
is a
Ronnie,
correlation between Bigfoot and all.
He's usually
I
out
know.
in the West. And I said,
We
you
were
gotta come
talking
out
about
with
that the
group,
other
because you gotta
day.
go in the group and come out with this whole production because we're going to do some New England stuff too. So I said, well, come on out to us. I got a Bigfoot. Your husband would be interested in this one here. My dad got it from Charles Hapgood at Keene State College. He's a guy that wrote Earth Crustal Displacement, and Einstein actually did the forward in the book before Einstein passed away. And my dad got it from Charles back 40 years ago, and I saw it in his house one day, and I said, what the heck is that thing? He goes, that's Bigfoot. I said, where'd you get that? He goes, Charles Hapgood gave it. And Charles' name comes up on history. Yeah, it's and I got it tucked away safely there, and I did some investigation.
To see that.
Because it supposedly came from Sir Edmund Hillary, who climbed Mount Everest. And I said, well, what the heck? So I did some research, and I thought it was 1961 when Marlon Perkins from the American Mutual of Omaha Animal Kingdom, which is on still today with a different host, I think. And I did some investigation. Actually, what it was is 1951.
That whole time period.
Sir Edmund
50s,
Hillary
60s,
went over
70s.
with Eric Shipton, the great mountaineer from England, and they went over to Nepal. They went up, or whatever you do, you went up, and they went around that whole area around Everest, and they took photographs of these prints, and they were
abominable
somewhat
snowman.
skeptical.
Yeah.
Went back to London, they recreated these casts in London, and this is one of them from Sir Edmund
cool.
Hillary and Eric Shipton.
Do you have it on display?
No, but I've been told to
husband
by
would
the
love to see
crypto.
it.
Yeah, the guy up there up in Portland, the guy that has a cryptozoology museum.
Yeah.
He's called me. He wanted to.
I've
He
been
wanted
there.
it. I'm like, well, I'm not giving up our heirlooms,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
He goes, put it on display, but we don't. At this point, I don't really have how it fits into the museum, although we have
Right.
odd stuff here. It's not
Right,
that
how
I
do
won't.
you explain the connection?
Yeah,
Right. Here's
but
a random Bigfoot.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not really fun, you know.
Hey, Dennis, I'm going to go get some
believe-
coffee. I'm cold.
Are you freezing too?
Yeah. My toes are cold.
Yeah, I
Your
want to
eyes
go
are frozen. Your mouth.
I want to go see
My
that.
nose.
That's how I feel.
I want to see the bell inscription.
Yeah, they're down in the building where it's warm.
Can we go down and
Yeah, I'm going to take the, you guys can walk down the trails. I'm going to bring the ATV down. You know, you make your way down to the building, and that's where
That's where I came from, right where I signed in.
yeah, the visitor center down below. Yeah, you can just, I'm going to head down too. So there's Libyan, Celtic, and Phoenician that were found here according to Barry Phil. And then they're found all the way from Canada, all the way down to South America, Phoenician writings, all the way up to the West Coast.
America BC?
Yeah,
Guy? I have that book, yeah.
in this Bronze Age American Saga, his other two books that follow up on that, yeah. So he died in 94, so I talked to him just before he passed away. He was in San Diego because of his health, but he was a Harvard professor at Harvard University. And
Really?
so his colleagues, I'm sure they looked at him like, what are you doing with that crazy bunch of rocks and people and, you know, all this is, they didn't, you know, he was kind of the odd duck there, I think, you know. But in the end, I think he was right, you know. I think he was right. There's ancient people visiting from around
Well,
the
that's
world.
what they keep saying, that they keep talking about ancient powers, glyphs, hieroglyphs.
Well, yeah.
That's all these celestials keep talking about.
Well, Peterborough. She's from Toronto, but Peterborough. We talk. I just did. I just did a radio show out of Niagara Falls in Canada a couple of days ago. The woman is. She lives right by. She's going to move back to Toronto, and I used to fly into Toronto all the time. I work for American. I used to fly for American Airlines. But anyway, Peterborough has the inscriptions, and it's supposed to be old Norwegian, going back a couple thousand, way before the Vikings, way back.
They don't talk about that there because it's a native site, so they kind of focus on, I think it's Ojibwe, or I can't remember which tribe it is, they kind of focus
You
on.
can just keep the politics out of it. Just look at it for pure science would be nice, you know. That's what I think. And respect people too. Respect people, but
Yeah.
if it's this, don't kind of cover it up because you don't feel some sensitivities may be ruffled, you know. I
Yeah.
want to know the truth. I
Yeah.
want to know the truth, even if it ruffles people's feathers, you know.
I
The truth is the
I
truth.
know.
I don't want to lie about it. I have some Native American that came down from Canada, and my son, when he was born, had the blue spot on his the Mongolian spot. So we heard it in our family. We got to do a DNA thing, you know. But by there's a serpent wall in that same area she's talking about up in Canada, the same kind of serpentine wall. You know, I've talked about that on the radio too. And there's a picture of it that came out on History Channel. They showed. I'm like, oh, that's like what we got, you know.
That's interesting.
So I'd like to see that sometime in person, though, you know.
Yeah.
That might be the most northern serpent wall that I know of. It's up in.
I want to see that too.
Yeah,
I think it'd be interesting.
Well, you guys.
Yeah, it looks more modern. There's no way that, yeah, that works.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's in Newport Road.
Castle.
Yeah, it's depending on who you talk to. It could be
And so Travis, he signed it for you?
Yeah.
I showed it.
A count. And they come up with something like 3,000 inscriptions found in North America and about the same in Brazil. And I think you can see, oh, you can see it now, huh?
Yeah, I can see it.
If I can illuminate it just right with it.
That's interesting.
So that was found in 75 when Barry Fell was here, because we had our eyes wide open, you know. And this one here, I don't know when this one was found, but you can see somebody chalked it, and probably Barry Fell could have chalked it in. But that's the cast, that's what it is, and that's what it looks like.
So these are just the casts?
That's the real stone. That's the real stone right there.
Okay.
Yep, and that's a cast. The deer carving is up in the that one is still in the oracle chamber. We call it an ibex. See, it doesn't have a deer antler. It has more like an ibex. When I did the ibexes, and we talked about that in the 60s, saying if it was a deer, it would have a different antler. You can see the body and the head and maybe the front leg. But I looked up ibex on Google. In the Iberia, there's different types of ibexes in Western Europe. I thought they were African, but they're actually Western Europe. The one in Iberia has that kind of an antler. Think, or just again?
It was a personal invite.
Oh, it was a personal invite?
Yeah, it was just that
a few
the
people?
couple that invited them up was Marty and Sally Wool. Marty and Sally Wool. Sally
And they
was
knew Betty and
yeah.
Barney, or yeah, Betty and Barney.
Sally was a music teacher at the elementary school, high school.
Whereabout was that town?
Stratham. Yeah.
Oh, in Stratham. Okay, yeah.
And I think it was just Marty and Sally, and we grew up with Marty. There was a family.
Yeah.
My mother used to take care of their children, and because my mother took care of the children and knew that we were kind of interested, they said, well, "Come on up." So they went up and.
No kidding. Was it just like 6 people then, Barney?
Yeah, well, 4. There might have been 6, but.
I mean, Barney and Betty and.
Yeah, Barney. Well, yeah, 6. Barney, 6. Betty, Marty, Sally, and my mom and dad.
The whole Hill family, huh?
Yeah.
And then they came here in 74, or at least she did. Barney had passed away,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interested. And then we have I've got another book, the same time frame, called The Gift of Prophecy. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
Yes.
But we got that. I got that one on the shelf, and it sparked enough interest that my mother bought that for my father. And then, the incident at Exeter.
Yeah.
Dad was on the police force at the time.
Was he really?
Yeah, and he went out, and I remember the sheriff coming and saying, "Francis, come on, we got some kids out there messing around in the woods." And they went out there and they saw the kids who were there to view the event. And then they saw the event.
Are you talking about the abduction?
No.
Yeah, the incident at Exeter was. Yeah, the incident at Exeter was.
In Exeter, Kensington and Exeter, right? Kensington, New Hampshire, and Exeter.
Was this object that came and was hovering and
the book came out with the same guy, Fuller wrote the book.
I think so.
And he wrote Bonnie and Betty Hill.
Yeah.
2 separate incidents, 4 years apart.
Yep.
But everybody blends it. What do they call when that they bring them together in their mind?
Yes.
They're 2 separate things. And they're so big. Pease Air Force Base got involved with that, right?
Yep.
They actually, and because with Betty and Bonnie, they contacted Pease too.
Yep.
I get contacted by a lot of guys in the Air Force. I actually just released a documentary of a recon Marine I know who said this has to come out.
Really?
Because he would move classified things.
Yep.
And he's in 170 countries. He came face to face with them in Iraq, and I asked him, I was like, was the craft grounded? He's like, we were all grounded. He's like, but it was. He just, you should watch it. It's insane.
Yeah.
I want to see that one.
I texted it to you the other day. I
maybe I
just
didn't see
released
that yet.
it.
Maybe I haven't checked that one. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one's long though. It's like an hour and 45 minutes because he had so many experiences when they were moving like nuclear stuff. They had the UAPs. G-force, like everything that he talked about. And I've seen these things. You know, I wrote a book called ET Frequency, and I have pictures of them in there, and I document these beings talking. But it's just amazing how it's all coming out everywhere now.
The Pentagon, particularly, right?
Yeah. He talks about the Pentagon, you know, the stuff they had to report and how they asked about these things, and their systems were shut down by these alien-born off-world vehicle crafts. And
Maelstrom, there was a IBCM or ICBM missile launch that was all shut down. And then Maelstrom, South Dakota or wherever it is. We've been out there near it. You know, they were the top secret. You know, these are the intercontinental ballistic missiles. You know, they could be in Russia and like a couple. I mean, these were supersonic, and they were shut all down. They're all individually controlled by a computer, and they were all just stopped. You know, they couldn't launch if they wanted to. You know. I mean, and is all of it true or not? It's so interesting, though, and it sounds like it was. But.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for me, it's not difficult to fathom anymore because I've actually seen these beings.
Right.
I've seen different kinds of craft.
Yep.
And
neat.
And
Have you, Pete?
No. I had a friend.
Around me then, or hanging around her, because I mean, I've seen them out my front window. I told you about that.
Yes.
You didn't tell me about that.
Well, the one it was in we live in the summer solstice sunset. We bought our own land back in '80. So I'm looking to the west a year ago, February, so almost 2 years ago. I come in from the sunroom where we have a TV, and that's where we spend our time. I walked into the living room. It's all dark in there. We don't turn the lights on too much. And I'm looking towards Manchester Airport, looking to the west. I see a really bright light, and I said, "Oh, maybe it's a landing light, very intense, you know." And I didn't see any of the strobe lights. I didn't see any rotating beacon lights. I didn't see any navigational red, green, white, like the marine on boats thing. You know? I didn't see that, and I thought, it could just be a landing light. And but it was in the wrong position for runway 35 and the wrong position for 6. It was more closer to the airport. It should have been lower in a different position, you know, because I see them coming in every night, you know. Well, it was a little unusual. It could be flying over the airport, you know. So I'm looking at it for about 3 seconds. All of a sudden, the thing, it went straight towards the ground instantaneously. There was no acceleration. It was just boom like that, right to the ground. So I contacted Kathleen Martin, you know, Betty Hill's niece. She's big in MUFON. I said, Betty, have you ever heard of one? You know, we know about transmedium, space, air, and water, but this thing went towards the ground in south of Manchester Airport, if that's where it was, because at night it's a little hard to tell position, you know. I said, but there's only streams over there. There's really nothing over there.
The winter solstice is directly behind me at this point in time. I am in perfect alignment with the sunset and the monolith. This is when I begin to hone light, as angels refer to it. Shortly after this, UAPs and what looks like a UFO appear in the sky, directly in alignment to where I had opened light. Remember that several hours ago, about 12 to be precise, I had used my light, my angel light on the monolith, to activate the glyph. The angels told me that these celestials wanted to fly a saucer in if I were to accomplish this. And that is exactly what happened. There are 3 UAPs right here and a UFO. Every plane that I studied over the course of 12 and a half hours on the property this day and other visitations that I had, they always have the chemtrails. This UFO did not have a trail. And the UAPs begin to flash on and off like I have seen them do when I am making contact with a flying saucer and its pilots. Take notice of how they go on and off. Later, they tell me they were delighted that I had seen them and that there are worlds from above opening. And in the new year, extraterrestrial races would be among men.